Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the All Things Strongman podcast. Last episode, we had the wonderful Erin Murray on, obviously, world's strongest woman at under 82 kilos. If you've not listened to that episode, get along to Spotify, get along to YouTube. It'll be on there right now and catch up. But don't click away too fast because we have an absolutely wonderful guest on today's podcast. It is a guy that's been a real up and comer for me. He's one of the guys to really watch ahead into 2024. Last year, he absolutely burst onto the scene at the Arnold Strongman Classic, finishing fifth. Went along to the strongest man on earth, finished sixth ahead of a bunch of guys that I'm sure you've heard a lot more of. But this guy will be up there with those guys once again as he goes probably to better his performance at the Arnold Strongman Classic in 2024. But it is, of course, the wonderful Thomas Evans. How are you doing, pal?
I'm good, man. How are you? I appreciate you having me on the show.
No, thank you for coming on and taking a bit of time out of your day and your busy schedule. As I'm sure you've got a hectic schedule between yourself, between your work life, and obviously then, as I mentioned, there preparing for the 2024 Arnold Strongman Classic. How's preparations going for that show?
Preparation's going well. I've spent a tremendous amount of time working on some of my weaknesses, so I feel a little bit better about them. I know this is going to be a incredible deadlifting show, so we've spent a lot of time working on deadlift and trying to make sure we're up to par to hang out with some of these guys.
Yeah, we'll dive straight into that talk around the Strongman Classic, which is just a couple of weeks away now as we're recording this. How are you feeling going into that show? How's the body feeling? And especially how are you feeling about the events that are coming up? You mentioned there about the deadlift.
Yeah, so I'm more confident than I was last year, given the events, just because a lot of the events last year was like, hey, the timber carry feels like this, the elephant bar feels like this, and I'm like, well, I've never touched these implements, so I'm not gonna really know what I'm getting into
Yeah.
completely. But after having an understanding and picking up the timber carry, not getting very far, but picking up the elephant bar, have a better understanding of those. I'm kicking myself at the moment for not having an opportunity to pick up the Denny stones prior, but we'll figure it out as we go there. Training's progressed really well for that, as well as the Palms wheels. I've done a lot of axle. When I was going through the ranks, like where circus dumbbells are popular for the amateur level open class, now I feel like it was axle kind of when I was progressing through the ranks. So I haven't done it on a completely fixed axle before, but I've simulated the best in training as possible. So I'm feeling confident. We'll just kind of send it and see what happens.
Yeah, I feel like that's something people don't really acknowledge or appreciate is you guys don't have the exact kit all the time. You've got to try and, as you say, replicate it as best you can in your training and when you're doing your preparation. Is it tough, especially? And you mentioned there the Dinny stones. It's really hard to probably replicate how those are going to feel and the unevenness of the stones. How have you tried to sort of prepare for that event?
Well, luckily, Rogue sells a Denny Stone replica, so you can plate load those. I believe the handles are pretty much the exact same specifications. What I'm unsure of is that how the diameter of the rock versus the plate will
Mhm.
kind of change how far the hand is away. From what I can tell, it looks similar to, with like at least the side that's going up against your leg, opposed to like the circumference of the calibrated plates I've been using. But just little things like that. I try to be really in tune to those kind of details and at least look at it, watch film on other guys doing it, see what tips I can pick up. And, so when I approach this given implement, knowing I don't really have time to play around with it, um, any little details we can pick up will be beneficial.
You mentioned it's going to be a massive deadlifting show. Last year, I believe it was 388 kilos that you lifted. Sorry to put it into kilos. That's best how I work it in my
No, it's all
brain.
good.
Are you looking for a big improvement? How's training gone on that? Is where are you at with your deadlifting?
Uh, Deadlift has gone up. I plan to hit over 400 kilos. Um, if not, maybe I'm trying to even calculate this into kilos. So something above that. I don't know if we're quite at the 425 mark, but somewhere in that range. I've modified my stance a little bit, try to really work on the lockout piece, passing the knees. I've always joked around that, we do a lot of partial deadlifts, but the partial's always at the top. I wish we do a deadlift comp where it's just get it off the floor. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So we've been working on it. I feel confident. I mean, I'm not expecting to hit 1,000 pounds yet, but we're definitely making strides towards that.
Is that a goal in your future, 1,000 pounds?
I think so. I think that's capable. It's probably not this show, but a couple more shows, maybe a little bit different if I find myself in a suited show or a briefs or something. I actually have like very little experience with deadlifting in a suit, so
Right.
that doesn't hurt me as much as maybe does some of the other guys who pull with suits all the time. I've done one regional comp in a suit and I hated it and I did worse. So
Oh,
I'm kind of in favor of the no suit deadlifts,
yeah,
selfishly.
yeah. You see guys like, not to call him out too much, but Alexei Novikov. He seems like a different beast when he puts that suit on when it comes to deadlifting. I think there's a video recently of him pulling quite a large amount of weight, obviously, but I think he was not in a suit for that one. So I think he has been working on it.
Yes,
So he's
yeah, as
gonna.
we all have.
Oh yeah,
They
obviously.
were very transparent with it. There was no like, right, is it briefs, is it suits, it's no nothing. So everybody's gonna have the training field in the same mindset. So
Yeah. You look at the lineup for this show as well. Obviously, you've got the returning guys of obviously Thor after a number of years out of the sport. Martins Lissis coming back after his year hiatus, and the guys already in there, like obviously Mitchell Hooper's the reigning champion at the Arnold. You've got the threat of Tom Stoltman, who just seems to be looking better and better. How excited are you to be in and around this field of athletes and be mixing it up with these guys?
it's truly humbling and a big honor. I mean, when they're announcing that it's the biggest lineup they've ever had, and I don't even know if I should be on this list, but I'm
Exactly.
honored to be a part of it. But it's thinking about where it was last year. Um, and just knowing I had to kind of go all out and not knowing how the events were going to go because the same kind of thing. There were so many things I didn't have a chance to put my hands on beforehand, like some of these guys have, and um, just kind of it's really cool to be considered at least a little bit among that group. Man, we'll kind of we'll see how it plays. I think I can get them in some of the events. Some of the events I know I'm not going to be shooting for that top three in that event, but I try to be as consistent as possible. Uh, I know like Hooper's game strategy with a lot of events, he's like he wants to finish the top three in every event.
Yeah.
And what I told myself at the last Arnold is don't finish last in any event. So now we're going to be shooting for 5 or 6 in every event and see where that ends up.
Well, yeah, obviously last year you finished fifth overall in your debut at the Arnold Pro Show. Um, as a probably a bit of an unknown to a lot of people coming into that show. I hope you don't mind me saying. Um,
No, not at all.
so coming into that show, did you feel like you had more pressure to prove yourself or less pressure because people were almost writing you off maybe a little bit?
Well, at that, I nobody will put more pressure on me than I put on myself. And I knew going into that show, I had 2 shows that year guaranteed. It was the
Yeah,
the Shaw Classic and the Arnold Strongman Classic. And I was like, I have to do well enough in one of these to get invited back.
yeah,
So I wasn't even thinking about placing in preparation. It was like not zeroing, like finishing the events, um, just kind of proving I belong, and then knowing I'm like I said, the for example, the Wheel of Pain, the guys that have touched that before have a tremendous advantage. Um, and I remember last show or last year, it wasn't the rookie goes first. I literally just happened to draw one out of a hat, so I didn't have a
right.
chance to watch anybody live do it. So it was, um, I was just happy to kind of get my feet wet with that one, and
Yeah,
I'm kind of approaching this year the same way. If I can hit some major PRs and we kind of sell out in all the events, and I don't leave anything on the table. Whatever kind of happens with the placing will happen.
But yeah, he definitely earned a re-invite to this year, I would say, off last year's performance. Obviously, as we mentioned, they're finishing fifth, beating quite a few top guys. I looked through the list. You beat both Stoltmans, which I don't think is an easy feat, especially in your debut at that show. How did it feel, sort of looking at that table and seeing, especially Tom below you?
Um, Shoot, I didn't want to. Again, I'm bad with focusing on placing and who I beat. It's kind of the
Nice man.
okay. What could I have done to shoot for that podium? Because for I think for last show, if I finished that timber frame, I get a lot closer to the podium. So I kind of evaluated from that standpoint.
Yeah,
Um, and Tom's a tremendous athlete, and I probably got really lucky with the stone toss, and I really hope that we bring that back. I don't think we're ever going to, but I need all the fans to agree on that that's one of the best events ever, and we should have it at every show. But nobody seems to be jumping on the train with me. Uh,
don't think so. I don't think you're gonna
stone
get many.
toss, stone toss, and max squat. That's what we want.
That's what you want.
So
Yeah,
this year,
can imagine you do very well on a max squat event.
yeah, I was really hoping we would land on this year, and it didn't happen. But maybe someday, or maybe I'll get to do a squatting event. Um, but we'll, like I said, we'll just prepare the best we can for the given events. You got some experience. I know what that timber feels like. Know what the elephant bar feels like. Kind of know what the ivory stones feel like that we'll be using in the stone medley, not the tombstone, but we spent a lot of time watching the fish, shoulder that thing like it's nothing on film and seeing how he picks it up and try to pick up any details that you can.
Yeah, suppose that's one way to do it is watch somebody else try and do it and pick up tips as you go along. Sort of rounding out a bit of chat about last year, earning your way to that pro show, obviously with the 2021 Open victory that you had. How did you feel earning that invite to that pro show going into that 2022 comp? Was that your goal? Was that your main target for that year?
So, well, I think wasn't it the 22 open and
22
then
Open.
23?
Yeah, sorry, yeah,
Yeah,
22 Open.
no, it's all good. I get the years mixed up too.
Yeah,
So I when we were looking the events, and that was actually my first Arnold Amateur. So I didn't really know what to expect. I knew it was going to be a big show like Strongman Corp Nationals. There are going to be a lot of competitors. I didn't know what the international presence was going to look like that year. I think that was it was the not the COVID year, but the year following. So there was a good bit of travel restrictions. So I'm sure that hurt competitors. Like it was very American heavy that year, from what I remember. Um, but I knew if I could get to the final, I'd had a chance to at least make some noise. My goal was to make it to the final. My goal was not to win.
yeah,
Um, and then the the final had a squat for reps, which I tied first, and then a max stone load, which a bunch of us tied first, finished with a 470. Um, and that was like, and I won by like half a point. So I had a half a
mm,
point going into the final. Then we all kind of tied across to maintain that. At that point, I was like, oh shit, we've gotten ourselves in a pickle. This is what I made as a joke. And I was like, Strongman suddenly is not a hobby anymore.
no, no. Suddenly you've got to take it a little bit more seriously, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah. I would always train very serious, but I went and got a coach. I was doing all my own coaching at that point. I started communicating with more people, getting some like tips and tricks, and I started spending a lot more of my personal income on
Yeah,
equipment to make sure that I'm replicating these things as good as I can. Because I was like, all right, next year's the real deal. Um,
mm,
then something kind of similar happened with the Shaw Open.
yeah,
Um, like I was go and at that point expectations were up because I won the Arnold Amateur. I knew it was a very stacked field. A lot of heavy Canadian presence
yeah.
there, and I had two really good events. The stones didn't go well for me, but there were some errors in the way the points worked out. I think I won that one by half a point too. So it's like it is so tight in that open category.
Yeah.
And I think something that some people miss is that the open category, I feel like the stakes are higher because if you're first, you get the invite to the show.
Yeah.
If you're second or third, you get nothing. Um, except the opportunity to try it again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Aside from OFG, which that one I messed up royally, but also uh, many good competitors, very stacked field. Those guys earned it. I was doing events that OSG in 2022 was the first time I've ever done circus dumbbell in competition.
oh wow.
So that kind of like it's the way the events fall.
Yeah.
And I made a couple execution errors, but I give tremendous credit to it was Remick, Jocko, and
Matt
Rag.
Rank. Yeah.
Tremendous credit to those guys. They absolutely dominated the whole weekend. So it's like it's so tight at that level, and it's just who's going to get the events right, who's going to execute perfectly to kind of squeak through and get to the next level.
Yeah. Absolutely. I can definitely bang the drum like you are doing for that open category. The amount of talent that you see in those competitions, especially OSG. I mean, this year was again a great competition in that open men's category. Congrats to Marcus Crowder who took that title. And obviously those guys then, the top three, get an invite to a Giants Live competition. I know a Giants Live competition isn't something you've managed to get across the pond and obviously do yet. Um, is that
Fingers crossed. I
I'm going to
mean,
say, is that
I
something you want to do?
yes, it is. I think there was one competition that was a possibility for me, and it ended up not working out just for whatever reason. Understandable, but I'd love to come to the UK and compete. Um, hasn't ironed out yet for whatever reason. But I also like to space out my competitions a little bit more. So part of it is on me. Like some of the guys that are able to compete and then 2 weeks compete again. I don't know how I would be able to do that at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a crazy schedule sometimes with these guys. I mean, we spoke just before we started recording about the SAL competitions, and I know Kane Francis, obviously the English athlete, I think he did like 7 weeks in a row at all SCL competitions, which is crazy to think
yeah,
about. Obviously, traveling as well. He's got a day-to-day job as well. Crazy.
I have not found the closest shows I've ever done was America's Strongest in 21. Then 3 weeks later was Nationals, and that was tough.
Yeah.
That was tough, but yeah, I give credit to those guys. Maybe if I was presented the opportunity and I feel healthy, but I'm not the kind of guy that's gonna be able to hold it back on this show so I can focus on this show. I rather just space out the shows appropriately if I can, if it's within my power to do so.
Yeah, I suppose the spacing out as well maybe dictates from your actual career outside of strongman. Um, you are correct me if I get this title wrong. You're the lead
That's all good.
strength coordinator of lacrosse at Delaware University.
Yes. So,
Nailed that.
strength and conditioning coach there. I assist with football,
Yep.
heads of men's, women's lacrosse. So I spend pretty much all hours in the weight room,
Yeah.
whether
A,
it's training myself or training my athletes.
a lifetime in the gym. Clearly
Yep,
you really enjoy it. Yeah. How, how
100%.
how did you sort of come into that kind of job, and how did you start training to be a strength conditioner?
Yeah. So I, both of them kind of started at the same time when I had aspirations in playing in professional American football. When those things didn't work out, I always knew I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach. And then as I was studying for that, I started competing in strongman right after actually the movie Born Strong came out.
Yeah.
Was right after I was released from the Green Bay Packers. So I was like, hey, this is something I could do. And then I kind of started dabbling in it. And as I was learning and becoming a strength and conditioning coach, I was also working on, a lot of strength and conditioning coaches training for different strength sports or Olympic weightlifting, what have you. because there is usually a lot of there's morning work where everybody's in class, things are kind of calm down a little bit, and then there's a lot of evening work. So that does leave a little bit of time depending on your university where you're at and kind of your position. So I've been really fortunate to kind of progress both of those things independently, but they've kind of lined up at the same time.
Yeah, I suppose it can work very hand in hand almost with the job that you're doing, and obviously the outside career hobby that's turned into a career side of things
Yep.
with your strongman obviously going so well. The time where you obviously you mentioned there about your aspirations to being a professional football player, and I'm sure that was kind of a lifetime aspirations from when you were very young, obviously all the way through college. I believe it was the University of Richmond that you attended.
Correct. Yep.
I mean,
Played there from 2012 to 2016.
yeah, yeah. See, done my research.
Yeah.
I'm prepared for this, and kind of when you were leaving the Green Bay Packers, then obviously you don't quite make that 53 man roster. You get kind of cut late on in that training camp. Where were you at, sort of mentally? Because obviously it's kind of one door closes, what's next, sort of thing,
Yep.
and a lot of people sometimes go through that, especially when leaving a sport career. And obviously
Mhm.
that you had aspirations to do. Where was your thought
Yep.
process at that point?
I mean, I was absolutely devastated for a very considerable amount of time. It's something that because I was kind of on the fence. I thought there were potential opportunities for me to kind of if somebody leaves, I may get a chance to go back, or somebody gets hurt. So I would literally sit there by the phone, like waiting.
Yeah,
And anytime somebody like anyone in the league, I would watch all the I forget what they call it. It's like roster management pages. You can
yeah,
see it, player transactions.
yeah.
Um, so I would just watch those things, and I couldn't understand why I never got really a call. Um, and I was very distraught, very angry about it to the point I don't think until about 2 years ago I started watching NFL games again.
Wow.
I can't and sometimes I still struggle with turning on the TV if I see a lineman, somebody playing my position, maybe not particularly the way that I would play it,
Yeah.
or with the I was a very aggressive. I could hear my wife laughing in the other room. That was the nicest way I could have said that. Um,
I know exactly what you mean, don't worry.
I played American football very aggressively, and like it was my intent to remove the other individual I was going to go against from the game. Um, so maybe it was better than I didn't play NFL because you see them, they're all buddy buddies after the game. That would not have worked for me. However, when I got into strongman, now I kind of see that side of it where you have such a level of respect for these other competitors because there's in other sports, and maybe not all the sports, but sports I've seen, like talent can kind of get you pretty dang far.
Yeah.
I feel like in strongman, talent may allow you to rise the ranks quicker, but everybody's sacrificing so much to be there. The level of respect is way too high. At least for me personally.
Yeah.
Again, I was a very angry football player. Um, Sometimes an angry strongman, but not usually at the other competitors, just in myself.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
Um,
Obviously, going from football to strongman, it's that team environment to a very individual sport at times. And I suppose you almost get that camaraderie from the other competitors that you're in and around most of the time. So I think that's maybe where the nicey stuff around strongman comes in, maybe a little bit. It's being able to be around people that you almost relate to, that you know have given up a lot of the same sacrifices that you've had to, and it's that relatability. I'm sure.
100%. And it's like it the amount of time is just so great that I feel that has to go into it. And there's it's whole body pictures. You're worried about your nutrition, you're worried about your sleep, you're worried about like everything you do has to line up in order for you to perform well at these shows.
Yeah.
for your body to be able to produce the amount of force or power needed to get the objective done. So um, it's a really special thing.
Yeah. We mentioned a little bit around the obviously the squat. Obviously, you will have done a lot of squatting in your football days, a lot of sort of probably bench press as well, which probably gave you a leg up on the standing bench press at the Shaw Classic. I believe you finished second on that event. So
Yes.
probably a little bit of
Yeah,
crossover there.
I guess so. I have tried to apply things from football to strongman training. Not all of it's applicable though.
Mm.
So when I was in college, I back squatted 690 and I actually got capped. Like I wasn't allowed to go any heavier.
Wow.
Um, Unfortunate, but because I hit it pretty dang quick. Like I wasn't allowed to do 700. Probably had 725 at least in the tank on that given day. I benched 525 in college. This was not powerlifting standards by any stretch of the
Yeah.
imagination. It's good balance, good like college weight room bench press.
Yeah.
And then did a Olympic style full clean, no jerk, but at 425.
Nice.
Obviously, all these numbers are in pounds,
Yeah. No. Yeah.
not
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
not
No.
kilograms.
I hope
Um,
everybody realized that.
yeah, I think I'd be doing the wrong sport if I hit those
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah. There's one guy
But
sat at home hearing those numbers, just absolutely mind blown, I'm sure.
they so and then we never deadlifted. So it took when the first day I'm doing strongman training today, not football training. It was a deadlift workout, and it was I tried to basically do an Olympic style pull of everything. So I had to like teach my body how to grind through lifts because
Yeah.
I also hit everything, especially then. I'm getting a little better at it now, either fast or I don't hit it.
Right.
Um, and that's not a good thing on deadlifts. You got to be able to hit them slow and controlled. But we've spent a lot of time working on that, kind of changing my mindset or my framework on being able to grind through a couple reps, but still even like I know on a deadlift for reps, when my last rep is for the most part. Because once it goes slow, I'm probably only going to get one.
Yeah.
Um, Given that kind of background with it.
Yeah. I suppose there's probably some bad habits almost carried over from that sort of trait. How long's it sort of taken to get rid of some of those? And obviously, you've had a lifetime of lifting things in a certain way. You've almost tuned your body to lift it that way. Changing those kind of tendencies and those motions, has it taken a little bit of time to adjust?
Oh yes, I mean, but like my first deadlift max that I did in a phase after football, I hit 675, which is probably pretty good first start. But if you look at considering that was less than my squat,
Yeah.
like that doesn't exactly add up. It took me quickly, I progressed kind of that 750, 800 mark with ugly 800s. And then I was stuck at 800 for like 3 years. It
Yeah.
felt like 3 years. Not until the last Arnold was when I was the opening deadlift at the Arnold last year was actually a PR for me. It was
Wow.
806.
Wow.
Um, so it took a lot of time. And so 850 was a 50-pound PR. Anything I hit over that would be now I've pulled a lot of weight, but now I've done the Tower of Power. I'm retired, so like it's like what do you compare it to? But um, it's like that was potentially I wasn't even going to be able to hit the opening weight at the
Yeah.
Arnold last year. But we spent a tremendous amount of time working through that. I still try to use some of the like explosive snappiness, really like on my overhead movements and cleans. I think I have probably one of the better log cleans. I would think some of these guys, granted, they seem to have an easier time pressing it than I do, but I feel like I can get the clean. Like I don't spend a lot of energy on the clean, and I don't.
No.
To me, that's more of a football drill than anything. Snapping the hips, allowing the
Yeah.
momentum of the log to roll up. Um, but I like. but also things that you would think translate wouldn't necessarily translate. Like, for example, I had a lot of people talking about like the wheel of pain should be a football drill. Well, there's no football play in the world that lasts 1 minute
No,
or
not
all
quite.
about 7 seconds. I was like, yeah, if you want to see how far I can push it in 7 seconds, I feel pretty good about that, but not a minute. So I found in training for that, my cap, I can push really freaking hard for about 30 to 40, and I built that up to 45 seconds. And it's kind of common for me for a lot of rep events. I can push really hard and fast for about 45 seconds, and I kind of hit my wall. And we're still working to increase that to a longer time frame where I can like start being able to push for a full minute.
Oh, well, yeah, hopefully that sort of, I suppose, comes with more experience in comps. I mean, I'd probably still say that you're quite in the infancy of your strongman career. Obviously, probably what, maybe what, 4 or 5 years into that sort of journey.
Yep. So April 19th was my first competition. So
Right.
that would be 5 years this April.
Yeah.
And then I started training like a summer and four. So you can call it 4.5 years.
Yeah. So it's still a very early in your career, and obviously you've had that meteoric rise over the last couple of years, and to kind of show that you can hang in that upper echelon of strongman, and then with these guys that are making finals, podiuming at these massive shows, you in and around it. So I'm sure that's sort of that gas tank will almost increase as you do more and more events,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
I'm sure you're hoping for as well.
Sure.
But yeah, if you told that guy that decided to transition to strongman then in sort of mid 2018 that he'd be the world's strongest man in 2023, what would you say to
I wouldn't believe it.
him?
I wouldn't believe. I wouldn't even know where to start. Like in my first competition, I came in 3 out of 5.
Yeah,
Now I found out later that that competition was pretty stacked with some guys that were doing really well in American Nationals, and I was
yeah.
thinking Delaware strongest. Well, then there shouldn't be anybody here. This should be pretty easy. Well, I was wrong.
Wrong.
Um, and it's just kind of yeah, it's very surreal. In the beginning of this journey, I'm not much of a goal setter long term. I just kind of think about the next thing and like, okay, what's the next step from there? Like, I don't have a like 5 year goal, 10-year goal because I'm just like, all right, here's my next thing, push to that, and then kind of see where we're at. And like, really, it was the moment where I was like, all right, everything kind of changed was winning the Arnold Amateur in 2022.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Interesting to see that that's just like 4 years between starting and winning the Arnold Amateurs. That's an incredible rise to that. Um, but yeah, how did you feel getting the invite to be a reserve at World's Strongest Man in 2023? Obviously, you were announced alongside Kane Francis as the initial two reserves for that
Yep.
show. What you get that call? What's the initial reaction?
Oh, I was humbled and happy. There was I know some people speculate that I deserved an invite right off the bat. Well, I'm like all the invites went out before the Arnold,
Yeah,
so I did nothing to earn that spot. I didn't perform. I mean, I don't know if 8 out of 56 is bad at OSG, but I didn't perform up to the standard that people
yeah,
thought I was going to. Um, and obviously OSG events kind of match up more with what World's events were. So, I was like, okay, we did a good enough job at the Arnold. And I'm like, all right, now I'm gonna hopefully have a second chance or an additional third chance that year because I was thinking I only had two. I was thinking I only had Arnold and Shaw.
yeah,
I'll just kind of keep getting invited back.
yeah. Well,
Um, then I think I found out on the Saturday before I was supposed to report that I was in. And, I think for me, I trained every moment. Really, I actually started training World's events after the Arnold, even before I got the call to be a reserve.
right.
Um, just because I had hope that it was a long time for the shawl, so I didn't necessarily need to start training shawl events right away.
Yeah.
It was a good chance to train some events I haven't in a while. Um, and there was I had hope. I'm like, they haven't released the reserves yet. So there was hope for the reserve and it worked out. And then I'm like, okay, like I feel like somebody, at least one person pulls out every single year. So we
Yeah.
might as well be ready to go. Yeah, it worked out. I got the call Saturday before, but I wouldn't have changed anything in my training. I don't think I held anything back. So I felt like I was prepared as I could have been for that first Worlds experience.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different sort of day. Speaking to a few people that have been there, it's obviously a very, very long day. Every day that you're competing, you're a lot of waiting around. How did you manage? And obviously the intense heat, which I think some people have commented on. How did you sort of handle it on the day and actually going through those that comp?
Well, I think it reminded me of nationals and on an amateur when there's 40 people, it's 30 guys. Now,
Yeah,
granted, it's a little bit slower with the TV, but I guess since I was only doing those open classes 1 year ago, I was like, all right, this feels similar
mm,
to the tempo of that. I grew up like Myrtle Beach was our local beach when I was
oh,
growing up. Now it's 6 hours inland,
yeah,
but so I kind of knew what was coming with the heat. I don't particularly like the hot weather, but that wasn't terrible
yeah,
in terms of how bad Myrtle Beach can get. Um, and a lot of so that's where football training kind of pays off. Like I I've played football games in 100-degree weather. I
mm,
kind of know how to prepare my body to do something like that. Um, and the ability to restart and re-warm up is important. And I think if I could change anything, it would have been try to get a better night of sleep after the log went so well, and then having the really bad slip up with the Conan's wheel, which happens. I don't know if better night of sleep or anything I could have done would have changed how that went, but um, something I'll be more into this year will be that transition between the 2 days. I think that's the hardest. That's the hardest part for me. I can go
yeah,
1 day real long. It's kind of how my work schedule goes sometimes, 6 a.m.
yeah.
to 6 p.m. So I'm kind of used to that, but it's
Mm.
I got to be able to turn it off, relax, and then get ready for the next day and do it again.
Yeah, you mentioned that Conan's wheel. Really, the only sort of slip up in sort of your group performance.
Yep.
What sort?
Yeah.
Do you have a reason for what happened there, or a little bit of an explanation?
Well, I placed the Cones wheel in too high on my diaphragm. I took 2 steps and the whole room spun.
That'll do it.
And yep, and then I just fell over. Like
Yeah,
I don't want to say like I passed out. Like I was fully conscious, but like I couldn't like
yeah.
it's like you just drank way too much beer and you stood up really fast. Is what it felt like. Um, and that was frustrating, but it was like I was getting myself amped. I picked it up. I had it too high on the diaphragm and just kind of um, spun the room. And then there's not when you can't really see or walk in a straight line. There's not much you can do.
Yeah, you see, up until that point, you was in quite a good position to potentially be in with a chance of qualifying for the final as well. You were pretty much in that second and third place conversation, potentially going to a stone off. Obviously, we're in the same group as Alexi, Luke Stoltman, Gab Bilton, and then the other two guys was Haroldson and Fadi El Masri, I believe.
Yep, yep, that is correct.
Perfect. See, told you, done my research. It's off the top of my head. But being in a group with those guys, and I know I'm talking about competition, obviously, a lot of those guys are extremely talented. How did you feel sort of being quite close and maybe I'm sure that a little bit of disappointment coming off the back of that group finish because you probably maybe could have been in line with for more.
Yeah, I think I was happy with my performance. I think so going into like I've done a better kettlebell throw slash sandbag series than what I performed, but at the position I was in third, I believe, barely ahead of Gavin. And I think if I beat him by one spot, like if I took first, he took second, he would have beat me in a tiebreaker. So I knew that I had to beat Gavin by two spots, and Gavin's really freaking good at throws. So I took an aggressive strategy and it didn't pay off. But
Mm.
I think it was better than taking a slow and steady approach. Just make sure you get the kettlebells over because given these circumstances, I had to beat Gavin by two
Yeah,
spots, and I didn't. So I don't have any reservations there. Um, and I felt really good that like the log went so well because that's always been one of my favorite events,
yeah,
especially anything overhead for speed versus even reps. But it was kind of all right. I think I did well enough to be invited back, but we'll see. And then I guess I turned out I was right. So
yeah. You did. You said it there. You've obviously nailed your invite already for the 2024 World Strongest Man back at Myrtle Beach. You've done enough to earn it. Both you and Kane Francis, who was obviously the two reserves of 2023, have got invites for 2024, which is great to see. Um, but it shows that your performances over the past sort of 12 months has done enough to get an official invite this year, and you're not sort of sat there hoping for somebody to drop out. Being able to achieve that and say that you're going to back World Strongest Mans and you've earned that spot, how do you feel?
I feel like we're pushing towards the next goal. We've kind of how I look at it, and it's may not be a good way to look at it, but I got three chances this year at this moment to prove that I should be invited again next year. And there's some young guys coming up that are trying to do the same thing I did. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be that there's more spots opened up. It's just kind of when somebody comes, somebody can get pushed out. That being said, there's more shows too, so hopefully more opportunities coming. But it's still a lot of work to do. I really want to start pushing podiums here soon, pushing the final, and putting in myself in the best chances to get that done, and not have to put myself into all right, we got to go full send on the kettlebell toss. Like it's the methodical doing what I can do at each event and not having any slip ups that kind of, especially in worlds, um, and really Shaw Classic for that matter, because there's 8 events. Um, Making sure you're being smart with not making any critical errors with in each event. Um, and just hope we keep getting the invites, I guess.
Oh, it definitely is always a good thing to keep getting invited to these big shows and put yourself out in front of people and show exactly what you can do. I'm guessing the goal maybe for this year's Worlds, are you looking to get into that top 10 and make the final?
Yeah, that's it. Yep. I want to be in the final.
Nice.
Um, but as we know, it'll depend on groups and it'll depend on events. And um, I feel that at least getting to the stone off will put myself in a really good position. I can live with that. And then I got to look at it. Well, if I end up in a stone off against Tom Stoltman, well, then what are you gonna do? But
Good
you're gonna
luck.
freaking send it and see what happens, right?
Yeah, so
Um,
all you can do.
um, but yeah, I think that's a reasonable goal for me this year. Um, I'll come in a better shape. Like I said, last year I prepared right away, just like we were doing for Worlds, or just like I was competing. So we'll have to kind of see once the events come out, see how it lines up.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of questions ago about the young guys, the up and coming talent. I feel like the scene in sort of North America, obviously Canada and USA, there's a real mix of guys that can really, depending on the events, who's at the competition, can really dictate who's going to win the competition. There's so much talent in that sort of region. How great is it to see?
Oh, it's insane because I think of like um Lucas Hatton
Yeah.
completely dominated America's Strongest Man this year. And then Crowder turns around and dominates
OSG.
OSG.
Yeah.
It's like it's totally. And then I've competed against Wes and Joey from Canada for numerous times, and I actually first met those guys at the Shaw Open,
Mm.
and it's all there are more that I am blanking on at the moment, but there's Tyler Cotton being another one of them. Like last time I went against Crowder and Tyler Cotton, they both kicked my ass, and America's Strongest in 21. And I haven't competed against those guys since, and I know like
Mm.
Crowder's going to do the Las Vegas show, right?
Yeah.
The deadlift championship. So that's going to be great for him.
Yeah.
Um, if Haddon ever gets a chance to do a max circus dumbbell, like he'll be flirting with that world record here soon.
Oh,
Same thing with Axel, probably. That man is deadly with the overhead athletic events. As you know, and not to disrespect anybody or any different events, but those were just the events that came to my mind
yeah.
for these guys. And they're creeping and crawling, and like I said, it's just kind of how the events play out, and who's going to be the next one to squeak through.
Yeah, you mentioned what, three or four names there, and there's probably about five or six more that, if we started chatting about, and we could easily come up with. And these guys are just getting more and more talented and really pushing the envelope of what the guys can do and lift,
Oh,
and it's great.
Austin's another one.
Oh,
I
yeah,
forgot
Austin
to mention
Andrade.
Austin.
Yeah,
He just he just pull 1,000 in training, or was it something very close? I can't
I
remember.
can't. I'm not 100%
It may
sure,
have been it may have been 1,000.
but he's incredibly
Um,
strong. I saw him at the. He got invited obviously to the Cardiff show, at the Giants Live Cardiff show after his Shore Open win. Um, and he was incredible there. It's great to see how
yeah,
these
he did
guys are
incredible
developing.
too on
Did
not a lot of notice, right?
Yeah,
Because those events were within a month of each other.
yeah. I think he only had maybe
So
maybe 2 weeks.
yeah, so and like I said, there are people we are forgetting to mention that are right in
Yeah,
that bubble as well. It is stacked here, and that's why I think the more shows where we can have more of a North American presence will be great.
yeah. What do you think about the Giants Live coming over to Las Vegas and holding the deadlift championships over here, over in the USA?
I think it's fantastic. I think like Myrtle Beach last year was insane with the fans. I think if they keep staying in NASCAR territory, they're going to find a lot of good strongman fans. That's how I think they got to go about it.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you guys know about NASCAR, but it's the
Okay.
same kind of population for fans.
All right.
Um, so yeah, I think I'd love personally to see more Americans get invited to, and Canadians, really North Americans, get invited to the U.S. championships, because that name was kind of confusing to me. Um, so obviously, as an American, I'm gonna hope for more Americans to be invited. I think you know maybe if this show does really well, maybe we can have a couple Giants lives in US, or maybe Shaw turns into a couple shows instead of just one. Who knows?
Yeah, I think the one show we've not really covered over that you've done over the past couple of years is the Shaw Classic. Obviously now the Strongest Man on Earth title. That show seems to be growing year on year, and Brian really seems to be putting a lot of time, a lot of effort in, and I'm sure he's putting even more time and effort into it now that he's uh, stepped away from competing. How have you found that over the last couple of years? Obviously, 2022 being in the Open and then the Pro Show in 23.
Well, that show was amazing to be a part of, and so I guess I won the first Open, and so I was the first Open competitor to get to compete in the Pro Show, and that one that one was special for me because when I was getting into strongman, Brian's the person I looked up to. Um, that was he was granted I was a little bit later than others in terms of not say always kind of knew what the sport was, but in terms of like I'm going to do this. It was watching Brian. How does he train? What can I pick up off of his YouTube channel. All right, what more is he doing that I'm not seeing on YouTube that I can kind of like the sleep and the hydration and the fueling, and that's why I'm super excited now. I'm actually working with him with Undefined Nutrition.
Oh, nice.
Um, so super excited to be part of his team with that. Um, hopefully get to go back to the show again this year. And I also love that part of the country out in Colorado. The fan setup is fantastic. I think even when they went to the Open or the 2022 was the first year they had it in the arena,
Yeah,
and then the following year they did it in the same arena, but they increased the seating both years. So I imagine it's also going to increase again.
yeah,
Um, Makes the warm up area smaller, but we'll see how they manage that. I mean, it is a loud crowd, both that and the Arnold. I mean, it's like you're on the forefront, and all that crowd noise is kind of being directed into that
yeah.
middle location. So it's really cool, really special to be a part of.
Yeah, it's nice to see. I've heard quite a few Americans and Canadians talk about the need for these arena shows, more arena shows within the US. They, especially the guys and girls that have come over to do the World's Strongest Nation show, um, they've sort of had a little bit more experience of how a arena show looks in the UK and the fandom and the atmosphere that Giants Live are able to create. And I feel like obviously them coming over now doing their Las Vegas show is probably a part of their plans in the future to do more outside of the UK, whether that's in mainland Europe or over in the States. Um,
Yep.
but I'm excited to see how it goes. I don't know if I'll be heading out there, um, but if I can, I will be because I just want to experience it and see what it's like and see how receptive the American fans are for it, which
Yep.
is what I'm excited for.
Well, I think Worlds last year really helped with that, with the incredible fan exposure there. Hopefully, Las Vegas will be the same thing, and then it just kind of keeps building and more opportunities for some more guys would be fantastic.
Yeah, fingers crossed. More opportunities is great. More shows. I'm always clamoring for more strongman shows, especially if they're live streamed and I can watch it because I enjoy watching strongman. It's just amazing. But I think we've been going around about 50 minutes now. It definitely doesn't feel like that long. It's been great chatting to you, Tom. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you again for coming on and speaking to me and taking a little bit of time out of your day.
Well, absolutely. I appreciate you having me. And like I said, I guess I was one of the first, we were talking earlier, one of the first Americans to kind of start interacting with your
Yeah.
page, all things strongman. But to me, that is the ESPN of strongman right now.
Well, thank you. That's
Um,
too kind.
yeah, all the information's there. You haven't missed a beat with it yet, and thoroughly enjoyed it. It's helped me keep in touch with some of my competitors while I'm not able to watch them specifically because I'm working, but I can just pop onto your page, see what's going on, and it's been fantastic. So I really commend you for that, and really honored to be part of the show today.
No, thank you. You're way too kind. Obviously, I just try and help out where I can and try and bring the wacky world of strongman a little bit together in one place for people to digest. So thank you. It's so kind that you've said that. And yeah, you were one of the first Americans to really jump on, interact, speak to me through messages, and it's been great to see kind of your career develop over the past 12 months and 12, 18 months. It's been amazing. And but yeah, thank you so much for jumping on. I hope people have enjoyed listening a little bit to what you've got coming up um, in the near future, a little bit about your past. Obviously, the next time Thomas Evans will be competing, he's obviously at the Arnold Strongman Classic, which you'll be able to watch, I'm sure, on the Rogue YouTube channel. It'll be on March 1st and 2nd, I believe, over in Columbus, Ohio. If you can get there, go along and watch. But if you've not, definitely watch it on the YouTube because you've got obviously the Arnold Strongman Classic, but also the Strong Woman Classic as well, which was a massive hit last year and an incredible competition to watch. So you definitely don't want to miss it. Uh, but yeah, thank you so much, Thomas, for coming on. Any final words from yourself?
Just thanks again, and I encourage those of you that aren't, please follow me on Instagram at Tom Evans Strongman. Big thank you to my supporters, SPD and Undefined Nutrition. Really fortunate to be a part of their teams and just kind of keep this thing going. See where we end up next.
Brilliant. But yeah, thank you for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.